short of time, I won't spend a lot of time um, in person taking all the names of the dignitaries. So, first of all, good afternoon to everybody. Before I begin with my presentation, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to ACPR for giving me this opportunity to come here and express some of the scholarly work that I have tried to do. First of all, I would like to also here mention that the work that ACPR has been doing is very much in line with what Gurudev himself has mentioned in the preface of a constructive survey of Upanishadic philosophy, of bringing together all those who are interested in discussing about the philosophical aspects of the search for God. And we can see since the last couple of days how this has been exemplified by all the speakers who came here and presented their ideas, as well as the audience who participated in the question and answer sessions after the papers are presented. I thank ACPR for this opportunity. I also would like to express a little regret that I have not been associated with ACPR since a very long time. My association with ACPR goes back to maybe just over 2 years ago, when we conducted a book launch event in our college together with ACPR, and that was the first time I got to interact with the people from ACPR, and I regret that this interaction did not begin much earlier since my association with Fergusson College. So, since all of us know that Gurudev was associated with Fergusson College for more than a decade of his life, first as a teacher of English, then as a teacher of philosophy, in addition to being a life member of the Deccan Education Society, it is only appropriate that somebody from the department would be associated with ACPR in this manner through the presentation. I wish to offer my salutations to Gurudev. So, if you see the title of my presentation is Two Voices, One Canon, Gurudev Ranade and Swami Dayanand on Upanishadic literature. Coincidentally, today happens to be the birth anniversary of Swami Dayanand Saraswati, and it's really a coincidence that I got to present my views on a comparison between these two stalwarts who belonged to the same century about their views on Upanishadic philosophy. Okay, so just a few biographical details. Again, because of shortage of time, I'm not going into the biographical details. But if you place both of them side by side, you will immediately, what will strike everybody is the commonality that they have as far as their period is concerned. You can see that Gurudev's birth was just after Swami Dayanand Saraswati passed away. So there is a common, not just philosophical, definitely yes, but a common historical, geographical, political, social consideration that both of these had at the back of their mind when they were discussing the significance of Upanishadic philosophy, particularly not just Upanishadic philosophy but Vedic literature as a whole. So we know Dayanand as the founder of Arya Samaj, as a Vedic exegete. He gave the interpretation of the Vedas at the background of some of the Orientalists, and we know him as a reformer more than anything else. The reason why I have mentioned Dayanand in each of the next slides before Gurudev is sheerly chronological, because he lived just before Gurudev was born. So, what is the ground for comparison? Somebody may say that these two belong to very different traditions of philosophy, and so is it appropriate to even compare their views about Upanishadic philosophy? So the ground for comparison, I have pointed out three different pointers on the basis of which I'm comparing them. But the first pointer is obviously something that I already spoke of, that they belong to the same century, to the same soil that all of us are here living on today, and they probably breathe the same air that all of us are doing. So that is one major ground of comparison. However, that can't be a very significant ground. The significant grounds from philosophical point of view, as you can see here, is that the objective of both of these stalwarts, whether it is Swami Dayananda Saraswati or Gurudev Ranade, was the preservation and dissemination of Vedic philosophy. I'm using Vedic philosophy as a blanket term, and I'm aware that for both, the meaning of Vedic philosophy was not the same, which I'm going to clarify in the upcoming slides. So, how did the two of them preserve and disseminate this Vedic philosophy amongst people? The preservation of Vedic philosophy was, according to them, to be done through accurate and indigenous and constructive interpretation of Vedic philosophy, which again both sought to do. The dissemination of Vedic philosophy was done by both of them in the form of institutionalization of their philosophical ideas. And Swami Dayanand did that through the formation of the Arya Samaj, and Gurudev Ranade did that through the institutionalization of ICPR, which all of us are witnessing even after a century. Both of them employed reason when they took up the task of the preservation and dissemination of the Vedic philosophy. So, this employment of reason for both of them was in a different manner. The methodologies were very different for both. For Swami Dayanand, it was important that the interpretation of the Vedic literature was Yukti Siddha. Okay, so what is meant by Yukti Siddha here? According to him, according to Swami Dayanand, the interpretation of the Vedic text has to be in accordance with reason, it has to be rational. The background for this is some very diverse and irrational interpretations of Vedic literature, particularly by people from outside India, that troubled him a lot. And so, even he was very critical of some of the interpretations even done by Indians, particularly Mahidhara or Sayana, and of course Max Muller as well. So he aimed at removing all of that was not Yukti Siddha from the interpretational point of view. And how Gurudev Ranade employed reason, we have all listened to in the last 1.5 day. So I am not going to talk a lot about rational mysticism. Then both were realists and both refuted Mayavada in some way or the other. But again, the context in which, or the way in which both of them refuted Mayavada are very interestingly different. One refuted it in order to refute Advaita, and the other refuted it in order to, in a way, justify Advaita. So that seems to be very interesting. So, as far as the central thesis of my paper is concerned, we can all understand how the Upanishads have played a very key role in the shaping and the development of Indian philosophical traditions as a whole. Upanishads were a source of profound wisdom for both Swami Dayanand and Gurudev Ranade. However, they used different lenses to look at these canons, and that is what the use of these different lenses will tell us how their interpretations differed. So they represent a fascinating intersection in modern Indian thought, is what I feel, and they exhibit one common characteristic, which I'll come back to in the last slide, where they exhibit a common insight to us, for us today, on how to do philosophy. So earlier Shrikala ma'am also spoke about the praxis aspect, and both of them exhibited that aspect very ably. So I'm now going to just talk about the central arguments from both Swami Dayanand as well as Gurudev's point of view. As far as the central argument from Swami Dayanand's point of view is concerned, he, as I mentioned, there were different ways of looking at the Vedic literature. People spoke about the 4 different parts of Vedic literature, from the Samhitas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and the Upanishads. And what exactly does constitute the Veda was a little different for these two. Swami Dayanand very emphatically stated that Upanishads were not to be considered as the Veda. For him, it was only the Samhitas that were to be considered as the Vedas, because they were the words of God, whereas he considered the Upanishads as well as Brahmanas as itihasa. Why did he consider them as itihasa? Because he said that they were not words of God, but they were words of rishis, and rishis in the end were human beings, and so he had a little different take on the Upanishads. Now, please remember, when I'm saying that he's not considering them to be the Veda, it is not that he's not accepting their significance as far as philosophical insights is concerned, but it will be clearer in the next point, where he talks about on the Pramanya of the Upanishads, especially in the Rigveda Adi Bhashya Bhumika, in the Grantha Pramanya Vishaya, he talks about the Pramanya of Vedic literature, particularly the Samhitas, being Swataha Pramanya. They are all self-evident truths, whereas the Pramanya of anything apart from the Samhitas, including the Brahmanas, the Upanishads, Aranyakas, etc., is Parataha Pramanya. So they are to be considered as Pramana only insofar as they are in consonance with the Samhitas. So just a few excerpts from Dayanand's books, the original writings. Then the next part of the central argument for Dayanand. Okay, I'm sorry, but this font is not visible in the PPT. I have a PDF as well, but let us not waste time in going there. So one more part of the central argument for Swami Dayanand is his doctrine of Traitavada, which is a significant contribution on the metaphysical aspect of philosophy from Swami Dayanand. So his interpretation of Vedic literature leads us to his doctrine of Traitavada, which is the doctrine of the 3 eternal realities. So he's not an Advaitin, he's not a Dvaita philosopher, but he talks about Traitavada, where he accepts the eternal reality of God, soul, and matter. In this, I have just given Swamiji's interpretation of 2 verses, one from Rigveda and the other from Kathopanishad, both giving a glimpse of his understanding of Traitavada. So God for Swamiji is the Nimitta Karana, God is Saguna, God is not just pure consciousness, but he is infinite as well. Soul for Swamiji was conscious but finite. So this is where the soul differed from God, possesses the free will, and thus this possession of free will makes the soul responsible for its own karma. Matter, on the other hand, Swamiji believes is the Upadana Karana, eternal but undergoes change. That is, you see things changing around you. For example, the seed changes to the tree. So that is how the nature of matter is. For Swami Dayanand, each of these 3 are necessary. However, the difference is that God for him is Swatantra, and matter and souls are Paratantra, as in they are the functioning of the souls and matter is with respect to God. So now we move on to the central argument of Gurudev Ranade. For Gurudev Ranade, the central argument revolves around Upanishads being the supreme authority, and this is where the authority for both of them differs. Upanishads are considered to be the supreme authority amongst other things that Gurudev also wrote, particularly with reference to the Gita. So Upanishads forms a very important part as far as the Pramanya is concerned for Gurudev. I'm just reading a few excerpts from his quotes. The preface of the constructive survey of Upanishadic philosophy is full of all the reverence and all the high regard that Gurudev had towards the Upanishads. So he says that there is no piece of literature in the whole realm of Indian philosophy except possibly the Bhagavad Gita. So that is why I said the Upanishads is not the supreme authority, but it's one of the corpus of the text that forms important authority, which is so truly religious as the Upanishads and demands from young India an intellectual justification of her faith in the light of modern thought. So, Gurudev's argument for the Upanishads grants supreme authority to the Upanishads. He believes that they are capable of giving us a view of reality to fulfill not just our philosophical and religious aspirations, but he also mentions scientific aspirations of human beings, which is very important. And he demands from young India the intellectual justification of in the light of the modern thought. The second part of the central argument of Gurudev will highlight the difference between Swami Dayanand's approach towards the Samhitas and Gurudev's approach. So Gurudev, again in the preface, in the introductory chapter of Constructive Survey of Upanishadic Philosophy, talks about how the Upanishads have been always instrumental in new religious movements in the history of humankind. So he starts from 2400 years ago, where the revolution began with the Bhagavad Gita, which was in a way a revisiting towards the Upanishads. 1200 years ago, he says the schools of Vedanta did the same. And now in the 20th century, that is when he spoke of this, he's saying that we are trying to reconcile intellectualism and mysticism, and that's another revolutionary path that the Upanishads have opened towards us. So from the Vedas to the Upanishads, when we go, we see this developmental approach that Dayanand takes, where he talks about the Upanishads taking us from prayer to philosophy, so from the Samhitas to the Upanishads, from hymnology to reflection, and from henotheistic polytheism of the Brahmanas to the monotheistic mysticism of the Upanishads. All of these are words of Ranade. So I'm going to just quickly depict this using one case study. Sorry. This is a very well-known verse from the Mundaka Upanishad, Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakhayam. So in this verse, we see that the same verse has been understood by Swami Dayanand as well as Gurudev Ranade in two different ways. Swami Dayanand, as I said, shows us how the doctrine of Traitavada is reflected in this same verse, whereas Gurudev Ranade interprets it purely from a Advaita point of view. So Gurudev Ranade talks about the two birds as the God and the soul. God, who is the Sakshi, the witness, and the soul, who is enjoying the fruits of their own actions, and the tree represents the matter. So these three realities that Swami Dayanand talks about are represented very ably in this verse, whereas Gurudev Ranade talks about how the universal soul merely looks on while the individual soul is engaged in the enjoyment of Prakriti. One is described as tasting the fruits of action, whereas the other is described as simply an onlooker. And the philosophic ladder takes us to the position of absolute monism. So all endeavors of Gurudev Ranade point towards how the Upanishads lead us towards absolute monism. So I understand there are some limitations of this comparative study, the limitations being rooted in the missions of these two people that we are discussing today. First of all, the primary objective of Swami Dayanand and Gurudev Ranade was different, you may say. For Dayanand, it was more in the social context, reformative, whereas for Gurudev, it was more in the individual context and mystical. The framework of interpretation that both of them used were also different. One was rooted in Sanskrit, in grammar, in Nirukta, that was for Swami Dayanand, whereas the framework of interpretation of Gurudev was rooted in the synthesis of Sanskrit and Western terminology, and he clarifies why he does that in the preface, again as was mentioned very ably by Shrikala ma'am in the morning. So just summary of what I have tried to present here in short. The philosophical root of the views of Dayanand as well as Gurudev. the status of Upanishads, that is considered by both of them in a different manner, the method of their studies where they differ, as well as the primary references that I have used for this paper. One was Rigvedadi Bhashya Bhumika, apart from Satyartha Prakash and other publications of Swami Dayanand. And for Gurudev Ranede's view, I have primarily used constructive survey of Upanishadic philosophy. So this whole, the purpose behind this whole comparison is where, like I said, I want to highlight that the gap between Swami Dayanand and Gurudev Ranade, or the difference between Swami Dayanand and Gurudev Ranade and their views on the Upanishads, reflects a beautiful diversity of the Indian philosophical tradition, that in the same century there were these two people who were talking very different things with respect to the philosophy of the Upanishads. The significance of the Upanishads, we should also note that the significance of the Upanishads lies not in a single correct interpretation, but in their unique ability to speak both the rigorous logic of the reformer that Swami Dayanand was, and the aesthetic heart of the mystic that Gurudev Ranade was. Also, like I said before, it represents a diverse yet extremely rigorous way of doing philosophy. We have rarely used the word doing for philosophy in the last few centuries, especially in India. So, both of them, I think, represent, though very different, yet very rigorous ways of how to do philosophy, how to put philosophy in practice. While engaging with original texts, both of them had this one more thing in common, where both appealed to people and practiced the same in their own lives, that they went back to the original texts. And while engaging with original texts which are very very far in terms of time from us, from where we are today, 2000 3000 years ago, the texts which were formed, how we can engage with the same text but with a modern perspective. So that's all. Thank you.